A world divided, the dawn of the Cold War. The Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension. It lasted from 1945 to 1991. The main players were the United States and the Soviet Union. These superpowers never engaged in direct military conflict. However, they were locked in a state of intense rivalry. This rivalry shaped the international order for almost half a century. The Cold War was marked by mutual distrust. Both sides feared the other's ideology and expansionist ambitions. The United States, a capitalist democracy, sought to contain the spread of communism. The Soviet Union, a communist state, aimed to promote its ideology globally. This fundamental clash of ideologies fueled the Cold War. The rivalry extended across multiple domains, including military technology and proxy wars. Understanding the Cold War is crucial for comprehending the complexities of the modern world. Seeds of conflict, roots of the Cold War. The Cold War did not emerge out of thin air. It was rooted in the aftermath of World War II. The war had devastated Europe. It had also left the United States and the Soviet Union as the two dominant powers. Tensions arose from differing visions for the post-war world. The United States sought to promote democracy and capitalism. The Soviet Union aimed to expand its influence and establish communist regimes in Eastern Europe. The Yalta Conference in 1945 highlighted these growing divisions. The Allied leaders agreed to divide Germany into occupation zones and allow free elections in Eastern Europe. However, the Soviets soon reneged on these promises, installing communist governments in the countries they occupied. The United States viewed these actions with alarm, seeing the Soviet Union as a threat to its interests and values. The Truman Doctrine, announced in 1947, pledged American support to countries resisting communist pressure. This marked the beginning of the Cold War's containment policy. Europe divided, Iron Curtain and the Berlin Airlift. The division of Europe was a defining feature of the Cold War. Winston Churchill famously described it as an iron curtain descending across the continent. This metaphorical barrier separated the capitalist West from the communist East. Germany, at the heart of Europe, became a microcosm of this division. It was split into East and West Germany. Berlin, though located deep within East Germany, was also partitioned. This situation led to one of the first major crises of the Cold War, the Berlin blockade. In 1948, the Soviet Union blocked all land and water access to West Berlin, aiming to starve the city into submission. However, the United States and its allies responded with the Berlin Airlift, flying in supplies to the besieged city for over a year. The Berlin Airlift was a logistical triumph and a symbolic victory for the West, demonstrating their commitment to defending their interests and containing communism. The blockade was lifted in 1949, but the division of Berlin and Europe remained a potent symbol of the Cold War. The nuclear threat arms race and the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cold War was characterized by a constant fear of nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 brought the world terrifyingly close to nuclear war. The crisis was averted through diplomacy, with both sides agreeing to remove their missiles. Conflicts by proxy: Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. The Cold War was not limited to ideological battles and nuclear threats. It also played out in a series of proxy wars. These were conflicts in which the United States and the Soviet Union supported opposing sides. The Korean War, from 1950 to 1953, was one of the earliest and most significant proxy wars. Communist North Korea, backed by the Soviet Union and China, invaded South Korea. The United States intervened militarily, supporting the South. The Korean War ended in a stalemate, solidifying the division of the Korean Peninsula. The Vietnam War, lasting from 1954 to 1975, was another protracted and costly conflict. The United States intervened to support South Vietnam against Communist North Vietnam, which was backed by the Soviet Union. The war became increasingly unpopular in the United States and exacted a heavy toll on Vietnam. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 marked another turning point. The United States supported Afghan resistance fighters known as the Mujahideen. This conflict dragged on for a decade, further straining relations between the superpowers. These proxy wars had a devastating impact on the countries involved and highlighted the global reach of the Cold War. Ideological warfare, capitalism versus communism. At the heart of the Cold War lay a fundamental clash of ideologies, capitalism versus communism. The United States championed capitalism, emphasizing individual liberty and free markets. The Soviet Union promoted communism, advocating for a classless society and state control of the economy. This ideological divide had profound practical implications. The United States and its allies sought to promote democracy and capitalism worldwide, and the Soviet Union supported communist movements and regimes. This struggle played out in propaganda, economic competition, and military interventions. The Shadow War, espionage in the Cold War. Espionage played a crucial role in the Cold War. The CIA and KGB were at the forefront, gathering intelligence and conducting covert operations. They recruited spies, intercepted communications, and conducted sabotage. Disinformation campaigns influenced public opinion. The Cold War was a constant game of cat and mouse. Intelligence successes and failures had significant implications. Life behind the curtain: domestic impacts of the Cold War. The Cold War profoundly impacted domestic politics and societies in the US and Soviet Union. It led to increased government secrecy, political repression, and a climate of fear. In the US, McCarthyism fueled intense anti-communist paranoia. Senator McCarthy's campaign led to blacklisting and censorship. The Cold War expanded the American military-industrial complex. In the Soviet Union, it led to increased repression and control. The arms race consumed vast resources, impacting economies. Economic burdens contributed to the Soviet Union's collapse. Propaganda and education shaped public perceptions. Fear of nuclear war created an atmosphere of anxiety. The Cold War influenced cultural expressions. Its legacy continues to shape political and social landscapes. A thaw in the cold: détente and arms control. By the 1970s, the Cold War began to enter a period of détente characterized by relaxed tensions and increased cooperation between the United States and the Soviet Union. Several factors contributed to détente, including the immense risks of nuclear war and domestic challenges that made continued confrontation unsustainable. The Soviet Union was struggling economically while the United States was dealing with the aftermath of the Vietnam War. Détente led to a number of important agreements, such as the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, SALT, which resulted in treaties limiting the number of nuclear weapons. The Helsinki Accords promoted human rights and cooperation in Europe. Détente marked a significant shift in the Cold War, offering hope for a more peaceful and cooperative relationship between the superpowers. However, this thaw proved to be temporary, as tensions flared again in the late 1970s with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The period of détente demonstrated the potential for diplomacy and negotiation in reducing Cold War tensions. It also highlighted the challenges of sustaining long-term peace and cooperation in a world divided by ideological differences. The lessons of détente continue to inform contemporary efforts at arms control and conflict resolution. Winds of change: Gorbachev and the fall of the Berlin Wall. Gorbachev's election in 1985 marked a turning point in the Cold War. He introduced perestroika and glasnost, aiming to revitalize the Soviet economy and increase transparency. His reforms unleashed forces of change, leading to the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. The fall symbolized the end of the Cold War and the reunification of Germany. The Soviet Union dissolved in 1991, ending the Cold War. Gorbachev's legacy continues to influence contemporary reforms. The Cold War's legacy shaping the modern world. The Cold War cast a long shadow over the 20th century, and its legacy continues to shape the modern world. The Cold War left a legacy of mistrust and division, but it also fostered a sense of international cooperation. The United Nations, established in 1945, played a vital role in preventing conflict and promoting dialogue during the Cold War. The Cold War also led to the development of international institutions and norms that continue to govern global affairs today. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT for example, aims to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. The end of the Cold War brought about a new era of globalization and led to the emergence of new challenges, including terrorism, climate change, and cyber warfare. The Cold War serves as a reminder of the dangers of ideological conflicts and underscores the importance of diplomacy and dialogue in managing international relations. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, the lessons of the Cold War remain as relevant as ever. The Cold War's impact on technology, culture, and geopolitics continues to influence contemporary global dynamics. Understanding the Cold War's legacy is essential for addressing current and future